Rise and fall.
Welcome to the, what do you call this thing? The bird's nest?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Welcome to episode 3 of Rise and Fall. I'm Jeff. We're here in my office downtown Nelson. I'm here with Trent Bush. Thanks for coming, Trent.
Absolutely.
Trent has been in snowboarding for 30 plus,
40 plus.
40 plus years.
40
You don't look that. You don't look like you're 90.
Well.
40 plus years. I can't even believe snowboarding's that old sometimes. But in the effort to do a quick podcast that tells the story of some iconic brands, when I heard Trent was coming to town, I was such a fan of Twist as a snowboarder coming up, and Tarquin Robbins remains one of my all-time favorite snowboarders who ever did it. An innovator. Everything he wore, everything he did on the board, bringing the whole Colorado, England vibe to the rest of the world. Just what a creator.
Yeah.
And I've always admired Twist. Justin is a good friend of mine.
Sure.
And I know that you've had a lot of opportunity to work with a lot of like crazy brands. Some of that may or may not come into our talk today.
Sure.
But start talking about Twist.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of pre-research because I think I know the story, but I really don't know the story.
Yeah.
Twist came along after you had been kind of coming up in Colorado, shop kid.
Yeah.
Really.
Wave Rave. Yeah.
And then you did a bunch of stuff with Wave Rave.
Yeah.
Explain to me. Let's just go into Wave Rave just really quick.
Sure.
And I swear I'm going to keep this one to under 40 minutes. But Wave Rave was originally a shop in Boulder.
Yeah.
And it was like a core OG snowboard shop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Skateboards too?
Skateboards too.
So skateboards and snowboards.
Yeah.
And this would have been in the mid-'80s?
No, it started in 82.
Yeah, wow.
I think. But
Okay.
it started as a surfwear and parachute pants
Yes.
brand. And we met Brett Conrad, who was Chip Wilson's brother,
Okay.
from West Beach.
West
and
Beach,
Lululemon, of course. And a woman, Sandy White, and they were college students at CU Boulder, University of Colorado. And we met them opening day. My mom and my brother and I were downtown Pearl Street Mall in Boulder, and
Pearl Street.
And they're out there handing out flyers,
Right.
asking if we like surfwear. We came in, and there it was.
And then you end up working for that shop for a bit.
End up working for that.
And see the growth of snowboarding from its infancy, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that was when it really started.
It was pre-edges, pre-high backs. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. So sorry, I didn't mean to get religious. That was more of an explanation. Excuse me. So you're working at a shop.
Yeah.
I read a little something where Wave Rave kind of started with you like spray painting stencils on clothes.
I puff painted. Well, the clothing brand. We had a team. It was Tim Wendell, Dave Dowd, Pappas Brothers, Kevin Delaney. I mean, there was just all the Boulder, kind of early Boulder people.
Right.
We made some jackets one time. Fran Richards, if you know Fran.
Fran was at
exactly.
Red Mountain for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Made some jackets. Just downtown Boulder used to have sewing, which is crazy. And then Quimbola Man, if you remember Quimbola Man. So I took some Quimbola Man pants, painted Wave Rave on the knees. We went up to the 87 Worlds in Breckenridge. And that was when the clothing side of Wave Rave really got started, because people were starting to see it. They were seeing the team riders.
Crazy.
And people were calling the shop asking for the pants and the jackets that they saw.
So you're really selling someone else's brand with the shop logo on it.
And
then it
which
turned
I hand
into...
painted, so it wasn't really well done.
Oh, it probably was. And then Wave Rave became its own brand.
Then
and
Wave
you were working for that.
Working for Wave Rave, with Brett, and it was a crazy team. I mean, it was Brett and Sandy, but then it was Fran Richards. He had come over from the hobby shop in Boulder. Rick Alden. So that's where I got to know Rick.
Denver
when I was
Rick.
16, something like that. And
Rick Alden, Skull Candy.
Stance.
Yeah, Stance.
And my brother, this other friend of ours, Imani King, high school friends. So we were working there. And then so basically to get that into Twist, selling early snowboards, obviously I think Wave Rave started selling snowboards in 84. I started working there in 85 when I was 15. And they were doing their own thing, and Wave Rave had a very certain flavor, and snowboarding had a very certain flavor, and that was the sort of neon, tight stance,
crazy prints.
The whole thing, and I was first and foremost a skateboarder, back then anybody who snowboarded was a skateboarder for the 99% of the people, and didn't really love the way they were going with what they were doing.
OP.
Oh, all that stuff. And Quicksilver, the early French Quicksilver stuff, all the snow surf stuff,
Kangaroo Pocket,
all the crazy stuff, and Bad Boy Club, and there were just
right.
all this stuff going on, and it was just totally counter of what we thought was good, and it was totally the antithesis of skateboarding, and it was just going in such a direction. And my brother and Amani and I decided we wanted to do something totally different. And at that time, so bringing like Tarquin Robbins into the fold, he moved to Boulder, just above Boulder. I must have been 87, I think, when I was in high school. Jeez. He came into Wave Rave, he and his cousin, and they're actually from South Africa.
He lives in England now.
He lives in England now, but they're actually South African.
What a ninja.
Yeah, totally. And so they came in, we rent them boards, and spend the next day up at Eldora, a little ski area. My brother and I just lapping them and spraying them every run. But again, at that point, Tarquin was super into like Misfits and like punk rock and the whole thing, which was what we were totally into too. And so we just started creating this little crew that was a little bit more of what would become New School, where all of the Wave Rave team and all those guys, were definitely the originators and innovators and early guys. We were a few years younger, and we really wanted something that was more kind of, at least by mentality, more skate-driven at the time.
So Wave Rave's kind of going in a more like traditional method on the growth of a brand, and you guys decided you kind of wanted to go in a little different direction?
100%. Yeah. And so it's funny because we actually took a lot of their roll ends from, they were doing production in Boulder and Denver.
Still making the stuff in America?
Still making the stuff, literally down the street, Wow. And so we took a bunch of the roll end goods that they had just laying around, and we just kind of remixed them and recut them into new things. My brother in particular had taken Polar Fleece and went down to the fabric store, bought a pattern, and literally,
started making.
Cut it. Well, my mom sewed them.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so going way back, my dad was involved in a brand called Frostline in the 60s and 70s, and it was a sew your own kit outdoor company. Even like Gore-Tex, you sew it yourself and you use like a toothpaste tube and seal the seams. And so everybody had sewing machines back then, and sewing was a normal thing that people had in their house. And so we had all of that history of knowing that you could just make stuff. And so
was that in Colorado?
It was in Boulder. Yeah.
You're like old school Colorado family.
Yeah, like five generations.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Pretty much came over in a covered wagon with us.
Just after, probably. Yeah, totally.
Wow.
There's a little town in Colorado named after my great-grandfather.
Really?
Or great-great-grandfather. St. Petersburg. His name was Peter Loosberg. So, yeah. Anyway.
We are getting some, history.
Well, right. The point being that for us, for my brother and I, and really for everybody in Boulder, literally making clothes was not foreign at all. Right. And that's the point. And so, my brother bought the fleece, cut the pattern, my mom sewed it up. I still have one. The patch is a little askew, it's fun. And so the Polar Fleece thing, the Polar Beast we called it, was the thing that really kick-started what we were.
And this was Twist.
And this was Twist, and this was we started making t-shirts and stuff in the late 80s in high school, me and Troy and Amani. And then the Polar Beast was the thing that really kind of launched us.
Okay, so you got Twist.
Yeah.
You're cranking along.
Kind of.
Who drew? I remember a logo that was like a crown.
Yeah, the crown logo. Yeah.
That was Troy, the OG
Troy
logo?
and Amani. Yeah, exactly. So they created that. We were all just working on the brand, working on design, and just literally making them and selling them. Especially with all the college kids, of course.
Yeah.
And in Boulder. And in Fort Collins, which you went to school. Yeah, exactly. So. Just literally selling them. We were selling them through Wave Rave. I mean, we were great friends the whole time. We were kids,
I remember kind of purple maroonish pants with black
knee patches
were the shit.
They were the shit. Those were sick.
And they had cinched bottoms on them. Yeah,
they were like joggers,
so they didn't turn into ice.
Ice
things.
100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
All right, so you're going along and you're hand making stuff, and all of a sudden snowboarding itself starts going bananas.
Yeah, for sure.
Those early days, the growth was exponential, and shops went from renting a few boards to a few people who came in. All of a sudden, those people became really dedicated and ambassadors of the sport.
100%.
And all of a sudden, it was like everyone wanted to go snowboarding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And people who'd been skiing for years wanted to do it. Skaters wanted to do it. Surfers wanted to do it.
For sure.
And you're like in the right place at the right time.
We were in the right place at the right time.
So what was that like? Like, how did it... You're just a bunch kind of, like, excuse me for saying it, but you're just a bunch of dumb kids doing some dumb shit.
Doing dumb shit.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, wow, we got a real opportunity here?
Well, you know, I mean, from being... At that point, Boulder was a real epicenter of the greater snowboarding world. So again, we were just like... It was just normal for us. And having access to the worlds and to all these things that were going on all over the place, just locally in Colorado. So again, it didn't seem... We were along for the ride, for the whole rise, so it didn't seem like it was that crazy. It just, everything was a step.
Right.
You know, so from a twist perspective, yeah, we made, started with t-shirts and the Polar Fleece hoodies, and then created some outerwear. We had to make jackets for Team Summit, which is called Franzen's on the trip. Jay Nelson, like, there were a bunch of kids that were like the high school team. Okay. And so we made a bunch of jackets, again, out of the second end goods of all the Wave Rave production. We just remixed the colors. And then decided we'd go to SIA and go to the trade show.
And got a booth.
Well, we got a 10 by 10, 10 foot by 10 foot.
Yeah.
And shared it. Everybody got a wall, but it was, if you remember, Plainsane. Mikey Plainsane.
And stuff.
Yeah, and leashes.
Aunt Mabel's.
Leashes.
They were together. Yeah, weren't they the same?
You know, I don't think they were different.
Yeah. But they did leashes.
Leashes, and then Cold Wave, which was a foot strap to like take the pressure off your foot on the lift.
Oh.
So Plainsane, Cold Wave was the back wall. Twist was this wall, and then Herbie Fletcher set up Astro Deck on a card table.
Yeah.
In the front, and then Mike Olson brought LibTech. So this was in a 10 foot. I mean, in the space of the carpet we're sitting on, we had all of this, and it was at the Vegas SIA when it was still across the highway. The snowboarding stuff was in a different building, except for Burton and Sims, who were in the ski hall.
Yeah.
And so we were just this ragtag, renegade, mobile party of craziness. Just
and you were selling only in America
19,
in those days? It was like
so that was we were trying to sell in America, and that's okay. The normal story of the Japanese distributor showing up.
Right.
So I don't know if you know San. Do you know San? He's a legend in Japanese snowboard market, but he brought Twist to Japan.
And that was
the sort of catalyst, you know. And then it was the oh shit moment of oh shit, like how do we? That's amazing. We sold more than we've ever sold combined.
Do you remember what those numbers were?
It was like $250,000 or something like that.
And they walked in and they're like, "We want this."
Yeah, I mean, Tom was just he was just so. I mean, maybe I'll try to bring him up here sometime. He's like the greatest guy.
Sick.
Just so stoked always. He became the Nixon distributor in Japan and blew Nixon up like crazy over there.
Probably did all right on that.
Yeah, he did all right on that. But anyway, yeah, he and his partner, this guy named Marble, wanted to bring Twist to Japan, and yeah, it was like I think it was like $250,000, and then we had to figure out how we could make it because.
So you got the order, and
we got the order. We didn't know we didn't have any money. We didn't come from money.
Yeah.
And we were just like, what do we possibly do? So it was literally from that moment forward, it was just like beg, borrow, steal, to try to get enough money to finance, that kind of stuff. I mean, Japan would give us a deposit, but it still wasn't enough to.
So So all of a sudden you're like, oh God, we got to figure out how to make 2,000 pieces of.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, for sure. And we were still making them in Boulder. I mean.
So you were still hand making all the pieces.
We weren't hand making it, but there was a little sewing shop downtown, and we had some of the and there was actually a really good sewing industry in Denver because there was so much outdoor stuff going on at the time. Wave Rave had a factory, because that had blown up.
So you were able to buddy up on that.
We were doing there was that industry there, so we were able to buy fleece from Malden Mills directly and make jackets, and then the other stuff, there was Mile High Textile, and we used Supplex there was no membrane, it wasn't waterproof, which is why the black knees and butts, right? Because it was Cordura coated, so
Because that's where you need it.
Yeah, you wouldn't soak through. So
because it's Colorado, not the Northwest.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So,
all right, so your crank. I'm only pushing this because I promise I'm trying not to.
I know. I'm so sorry.
We could go like 5 hours,
and I'm guilty of that all the time. So just keep me on track.
It's like this is my challenge is to like, because this is all so interesting for me.
Yeah, no, totally.
We'll talk for like another 3 hours after this.
Yeah.
But all right, so Twist, you finally make it into the Japanese market. Mm-hmm. You got the manufacturing kind of figured out in Denver. Yeah. And it seems like snowboarding kept growing exponentially through the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. It
was kind of crazy because Twist really started attracting not just a good team, but like the best of the best were coming over.
Yeah.
What was your team like at the peak? Like, this is crazy.
It was insane. I mean, and between Twist, Titan, and Tuesday, because we ended up with the three
Tuesday
brands,
was the women's line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, with Tina and Shannon.
Right, so Tuesday predated prom?
No, it actually was after.
Oh, it was after prom.
Yeah, it was after prom when Lisa came over. So the team thing.
Yeah,
Twist was... So we were right at the front end of what ended up being the new school sort of movement, especially in Summit County.
Right.
Because that thing, the sort of skate-driven snowboarding style...
Well, all the Back Dog movies and everything.
Yeah, and everything... Yeah, I mean, there was so much coming out of there, but all the riders are coming from Midwest, from all over the place. And so we were just in the sort of epicenter of what was pushing snowboarding forward at that time.
Yeah.
Especially,
geographically.
Cut down boards geographically, but even just from a... So we were in Colorado, the magazines and Burton magazines were in Southern California, and Burton was East Coast,
Right.
And so we didn't have access to a lot of the stuff, but we had the crew. So we started to even get the word out on what we were doing. We started, and that's when Justin Hostynek moved to Boulder.
Right.
And quickly became part of Twist. And so it was me, Troy, Amani, Justin, and then Evan Hecox, the artist.
Because Justin was like the photographer.
He was, Jaw. He was
still photographer.
Yeah, he was staff photographer for...
When did Absinthe start in relation to that?
Well, we started the Absinthe, really, if you go back to the very first movies, those were the Twist movies. Wow. So we started those, and Justin was out shooting.
There was like 3 or 4...
Anthem?
Yeah,
if you remember
Anthem, right.
To this day is one of the... I mean,
sick. Was JP Walker in that movie?
No, JP Martin.
JP Martin, sorry.
Yeah.
Who actually, me and JP worked together. He
worked at Baldface, yeah.
Sorry, no offense,
JP. He was supposed to be
on
this trip, but I think he got...
the other JP.
The other JP?
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the team thing, Justin was staff photographer at Snowboarder, and also for magazines in Japan. I mean, he was submitting photos all over the place.
Right.
And so through that, we had access not only to our friends who were the Colorado and associated people, but then he was out actually traveling, shooting, and that's where you ended up. I mean, the Colorado guys, of course, it was like Adam Merriman and Jay Nelson and Tarquin, of course, and Mark Franck later on, and there's like that whole crew of Colorado people, right. But then even globally, like Ingemar, we had Ranquet, we had Palmer at the time.
So wait, just think. That's
people,
crazy.
Like I could keep listing them.
You had Ingemar and Palmer and Ranquet and Tarquin.
Yeah.
JP Martin,
of course.
Jay
Nelson, Adam Merriman.
Adam Merriman.
Yeah. J2.
J2.
That's why we're here.
That's right.
J2's
we're all here for J2's kind of bro trip.
Exactly.
This year. That's why
for J2. But I mean that. So it was nuts. And Tina and Shannon, of course, Janna Meyen.
Oh man, Janna, like underrated, absolutely
100%.
ruler of snowboarding. Take the gender out of it.
100%.
I rode with her one time at Baldface and with Bjorn.
Yeah.
And the whole Volcom team, and she was unbelievable to be in the mountains with. The really nice, really cool, and then an absolute beast of a snowboarder.
Yeah, she's incredible.
What an amazing.
So we had the riders. This was all pre-internet. I mean, there was no email even at that time. I mean, we had pagers, beepers. We didn't have cell phones. Right. Yeah, and what was going on in Colorado, in particular, again in Summit County, was we didn't have the magazine down the street, so we started one. We didn't have the video crew, so we started it.
Right.
You know, and so we didn't.
What
have
was the
that
magazine you started?
Crucial Leisure.
Oh, great name.
Yeah, it was a good magazine. It was funny because we did the it was the world's largest snowboard magazine because it was
physically?
giant.
Oh, nice.
And so Dave England, who was one of our writers at the time too, started Skin Tight, which was the world's smallest. It was super fun, but it was like nobody was covering what was going on and what we were doing and the equipment modifications and the
Were people
style.
shredding urban shit back then? Like in
Just the
Boulder?
start, yeah.
Because they would go to Breckenridge.
Mainly,
and,
well, but most of the crew lived in Breckenridge.
Right.
And so that was the epicenter, you know, the Edelweiss, the ghetto, the hotel, or the apartment building was kind of like the spot, and so many people were there, who then later went on to do things. So anyway, we that's how we got the word out there. It was through the videos, we made cassette tapes.
Like mixtapes.
We made mixtapes, yeah, totally.
I think I had one.
You maybe did, and so it was just like, it was our version, our little world of snowboarding, which at the time, because there was, again, no internet and no access to everything else that was going on around, it was literally our own little self-created world. We did video premieres, we did everything. It was insane.
As you're doing that, you're starting to like make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit more than what you spent on making just the stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys were taking that money and kind of pouring it back into the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you guys were like buying houses or
no. In fact, we
save for retirement. You were doubling down and doubling down.
And we spent more money. We were paying some of the riders more than we were paying ourselves.
Yeah,
just because that was just the thing. But again, it wasn't.
It was investing in it.
It was kind of investing in it, but it was just our crew. Like, there was no master plan. I mean, we were, again, you know, I had been doing this since I was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah. As
was Troy, as was Imani. And so we did it to keep what we loved going.
Yeah.
There was no big, like, oh, we're going to be rich.
Who were you looking up to? Was there anybody? Did you have mentors like your dad or like anybody in skiing or like did you have any?
You know, not, I mean, if that...
Wave Rave maybe? Like,
Wave Rave, of course. I mean, there were influences, but there was nothing we wanted to be like. Volcom didn't exist.
Right.
Special Blend didn't exist. And those brands came later. 686, you know, Mike, that he wasn't there yet.
Right.
And so we were more... It's kind of funny. We were more sort of against things more than we were influenced by other things.
Right.
Yeah. We were trying not to be the things that were around because we wanted something different.
New school.
We were basically, you know, we were street skating and it was vert. You know, that was just like, that was kind of the deal.
So sick.
Yeah, it was really good.
All right, so you're cranking along.
Yeah, cranking
along. Snowboard
along.
is cranking along.
Yep.
You all thought it was I'm just going to assume you all thought it was going to last forever?
Maybe.
Yeah. You were going to ride it as long as you could?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was what I did. It was my life.
But it was like started to get to the point where you're like, we got to design a line for next year. And
then
it did. And get it produced.
It is true.
Shoot the photos. And it turns into
a little
with
more.
With the seasonality of our business.
A little more structure.
It's kind of like cool how we all fall into, like, you can work really hard, but then it falls into a rhythm.
Yeah.
And the rest of the industry falls into the same rhythm.
That's exactly right.
And that's what I experienced.
Trade show, you know, sell cycle, buy sell cycle, all those things.
WWSR.
Winter only comes at, you know what I mean? And Christmas and Thanksgiving. And
well, then we had South America. Some of the people I worked with, it was like, oh, South America.
Yeah.
They'll buy the shit that we don't sell.
Yeah, no, we sold it in Australia, and New Zealand, and South America. Yeah, totally. So Twist ended up being, it got pretty big. And
so what's pretty big? World, like
global.
You had distributors everywhere?
Oh yeah, we had distributors in every country that had snow. Yeah, we had Russia. Yeah, totally. Anywhere that there was snow, we literally had distributors. We were second in the U.S. market. We were second to Burton in specialty store penetration, not in size, but in how many specialty stores, because we were very specialty focused. We didn't sell the guards, we didn't sell the...
And you guys didn't have like tons of like SKUs.
We didn't have tons.
It was like 3 jackets, 3 pair of pants kind of thing.
It was, it got a little bigger towards the end, but for sure. It was never giant like things got more recently. But we made, we were very devoted to women's products, so that, and giving the own brand, all of that stuff. So, between the brands, it was pretty big, and it did get, we kept the lights on by obviously selling stuff, but we had to find financing every time. We'd grow out of, my dad's friend, and we weren't bankable,
right,
and not even close, and so it was really difficult to kind of keep doing that. I think we went out of business like 3 times probably over the. Probably, I mean.
What does out of business mean? How do we do it for time? Oh, we're doing it. So how does?
Yeah, I mean, out of business.
We're getting towards the. We're in the rise.
Yeah, for sure, and just to where you're not paying. Nobody's.
You can't pay the bills.
Well,
then
you're not paying yourself, and you have and you just eat more Taco Bell, and you just.
It's when it becomes a riddle, and you're just trying to solve the riddle all the time, as opposed to running.
No, that's exactly right, and always looking for money. We had moved the brand later on. We always had the foothold in Boulder, and we had a shop in Boulder and all that, like a twist shop. But we had moved a lot of the business to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Because all of the making clothes in the U.S. In the Denver Boulder area, that all kind of ended up going away.
And where did you end up making?
So we moved the brand to San Francisco for 2 reasons. One, we were all Boulder kids and wanted a little bit bigger, broader view of the world. And then second, because North Face had recently moved all of their production from the U.S. in the Bay Area overseas. So we thought, let's just go to San Francisco and we'll fill up those factories. But we didn't fill up the factories.
So where were we at? You were moved to San Francisco.
Moved to San Francisco.
You're struggling with your success.
Yeah.
Like, people wanted it. You had great penetration in the core shops.
Yeah.
You were second to Burton as far as specialty stores.
Yeah, sure.
Things are going along pretty good, but you're realizing it's not all wine and roses.
No.
And production starts to become the problem, and financing production starts to become the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
What year was that? What was going on in the world at this? What year was this?
So 95. I think we moved part of it to San Francisco in 93, 94, right around there. I stayed in Boulder. Then 95-ish. Right. It was the last year I think we made stuff in the U.S. And so then Justin had a good friend, a connection, maybe not a good friend, in Italy. So we actually moved our production to Italy, which was incredible. Like, I mean, just the whole thing was insane, you know, and going over there to make clothes and do the whole thing, it was super cool. Quality went from Twist, which was kind of like, like 12th grade hobby shop looking kind of like stuff you made in the back room somewhere, to incredible quality, unbelievable quality, incredible durability. Like, it was really a huge step up. And so did that for almost 2 years, and then at that time we were really having a hard time with financing. And we're fast forwarding. There's a lot going on in between, but we ended up getting financed. We had to change distribution in Japan because it came with financing. So it was the guys that, if you remember, Division 23 and one, I think they did one. But it was the distribution company that basically did the distribution program.
So they would say, we want this much and we'll give you this much.
And not only that, but they would actually finance the entire brand. So they would give us the operating
seemingly
capital.
a pretty decent arrangement.
Seemingly a very good arrangement.
What was the thorn in that?
So the thorn in that was 96, when the Japanese economy fell to pieces.
That's what I was asking
when
before.
It tanked, exactly.
So when the Japanese economy tanked, a bunch of business got caught with their pants down.
Right
in between the seasonality.
100%, yeah.
And all of a sudden you overproduced for a market that disappeared overnight.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that we had necessarily overproduced. It was that we had operated for 8 months of the year. You make all your money in the 3 months or whatever when you ship and collect during the winter. And we had sunglasses at that time. I don't know if you remember Twist sunglasses. It was actually.
I have a pair of Twist goggles.
Oh yeah, Twist goggles. Yeah. So we had kind of expanded out. Fran Richards actually had helped us set up that deal with Bosch and Lomb. But so it was just this sort of crazy thing, because Twist was we were doing really well, and that was when Lisa was part of it at that point. So fast forwarding again, we brought on Lisa Hudson. Legend, yeah, and she was doing sales and marketing. We had all kinds of people involved. It was really going very well. The sunglass thing was crazy. We were actually at we had a relaunch party with a new group we were working on the sunglasses and goggles with, at like Spy Bar in Soho in New York City. We were literally we were at the
right there
at the top at this crazy party it was us and co-sponsored by Interview magazine. I mean it was gnarly.
Yeah.
And like literally 4 days later, I think we were like went from the highest of high, and just like we're on top of the world, to getting a phone call from Japan and the guys just being like, oh yeah, we had our shareholders meeting, because they were a publicly traded company, and it was the first time since the founding of the company in the 50s or something that it had ever lost money in general.
Oh god.
And they're just like, yeah, they voted that we're going to close down all the little side stuff that we're doing, all the hobby projects, and we're just going to focus on the core business. So just send us the money that you've spent. And at that point, I think we had like $4.5 million in operating expense up to that point, because we were a $7 or $8 million business at that point. And they're just like, send us the money and have a good day. Kind of it was literally like that. Like,
wait,
what money?
What are you talking about?
It was super crazy, and Troy and I had personal guarantees for the money.
So how did you get out of that one?
We ended up trading the trademark to them, which then because they thought the trademark was worth in excess of the money that we owed them.
How do they value something like that?
I think that's the only thing that they thought was of value.
Okay.
Because without the people running the brand, without Lisa and without all of us and Justin and who knows what the real value was. But we were lucky enough that they thought that there was value.
You got out from underneath.
We got out from underneath it, which is crazy. I think the funniest part of it, it's not even funny, but we had twist.com at that point, and that was when domain names were going through the roof.
Right.
And that was a multi-million-dollar domain name at the time. And I think they let it expire.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but anyway,
I actually looked it up today. It's a clothing shop in Vancouver.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to get anybody sued. I was just like, I wonder what twist.com is.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. But they gave us about a week to send them the money.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they gave us literally a week. Yeah, just send us the money next week, give you 1 week.
Yeah, we know you're just sitting on it.
Seriously. And so we went into scramble mode. We went to everybody we knew, tried to find somebody to kind of step in. We had a couple brands that were super interested. And what it would have been, what the bottom line would have been, Troy and I probably would have still had jobs. Probably everybody else would have been out.
Right.
And it felt like we were just trying to save a job. And so we just looked at each other and were like, no, we're done.
So what was that day like? It's like we're doing the rise and the fall. There's always like a moment.
Day. Yeah. It's really crazy because it was the same day there was a tornado in Boulder, which there aren't tornadoes in Boulder.
Yeah, not a tornado place. So you have a natural disaster. You look at each other. It's you and your brother.
It's me and my brother. Yeah, and we were in Boulder. Amani had left the business a couple of years before because he had all kinds of other things he wanted to do.
Yeah.
We have Justin. But.
And was there like a day where you were all in agreement, like this is done?
There was a day that Troy and I basically had to kind of tell everybody that it was done, but everybody kind of knew.
Yeah.
Because they knew kind of where we were at and that it was not going to be something that was savable to keep it intact the way it was. For me, and it was super hard to tell those people, but the hardest was riders because we had come up together. Some of our riders were older than me.
Yeah.
And we were really, really, really tight friends, and we had kind of, if we had ever painted a picture of big bright future, it was more to riders, I think.
Yeah.
And I, not that they were going to, we paid them, but it would have been, that's what I felt the worst, telling, J2, telling Stevie Alters, telling, just people who became incredible friends, some who were on this trip.
Which is really important. So when your, business has this meteoric rise, this plateau, and then this descent into a tornado-filled worst day.
Yeah.
To be able to maintain friendships and relationships would be a really good example when I talk to you and I know your history of how you were able to take a set of challenges and fail, but fail into the next thing.
Yeah.
Learn from these mistakes or different ways to do things, and apply those lessons to the next.
Yeah.
And maintain those relationships, because I've found, a commonality in a lot of these stories is the successful entrepreneurs learn how to end things really well.
Yeah.
The guys who stumble a lot, like burn the building down and get kicked out of town.
No, for sure.
And you're a really good example of someone who continually has been evolving as an entrepreneur through this whole thing, and probably using the network that you created back in the Wave Rave shop days to this day. And as I look at everyone getting together for, J2's catboarding trip, I see all these guys that I really was looking up to as I was coming up, who've maintained these amazing relationships, business and personal.
For sure.
And even if you haven't, like Fawcett was in today, and it's like some of these people haven't even been snowboarding in like 5-6 years.
Yeah, there are some.
And they're nervous, but they're so excited to see each other.
Yeah, he took a whole crew up too.
And it's what I love about snowboarding, and I can't speak to a million other industries because I've only been in this one.
Yeah.
But I love it how as we're all aging, we're all kind of aging together.
Yeah.
We have this common language of companies like Twist and Arnett and
sure.
Moro and you name it, Santa Cruz, all these Checker Pig. I mean, go down the line, and we can all like tell these kind of fun stories together as friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is such an honor to be part of the whole kind of stew.
Yeah.
And
and
we're so lucky.
You're totally right. Those are the things, it's like the fact that Justin Hostynek helped arrange this. Yeah. And that we've been super tight for way more than half our lives. Yeah. It is cool. And you know what, there wasn't a whole lot of fallout from that perspective, again, because we were like the family. I mean, it was people say that, but that's literally what it was. And so it was that's why it was so hard to let it go, but that's also why to this day, they're still family in so many ways, and that is the coolest part. I think if there was advice, or there were there were learning situations and things that I didn't know along the way. I'm really introverted, honestly, and I've always had kind of a real problem with anxiety and stuff. And what I wish along the way, I would have been more upfront, meeting people at the events. I mean, of course, I got to know a lot of people, but I also got to build a pretty safe world of people around me that I didn't have to necessarily go outside. And now thinking back, all of the people, all of the, at the parties and at the trade show and at the thing, I wish if I could do that over again, I would have made a real concerted effort to get out of my comfort zone and really to not push myself on people, but just make and maintain those relationships, because they do last.
It's great advice.
They do last forever.
It's really great advice. Yeah. I know I find I'm trying to teach Estelle a lot of things, and Lucia, as they're coming up to the lodge more. Yeah. Lucia was up last week, and they're at the age where you throw them in the cat with all these dudes. Yeah. She's like, I don't know what to talk to people about. And I'm like, Lucia, you look at these guys and you just ask them a few questions. Yeah. And you will learn more in that cat. You will learn more in that trade show by asking people questions and just really listening and remembering. Everybody's got a cool story. Everyone wants to share some great stuff. And, that's what we're doing with this podcast. That's what we're doing in the cat every day. Totally. That's what we're doing as we move forward. So.
Yeah, and that was, I guess, one example of where I did put myself out there a little bit more. I was on the board of directors for SIA when I was 24, I think, which was really stepping out of my comfort zone, but I had sort of become entrenched in trying to take snowboarding, because at the end of the day, I just love snowboarding. That's like what I, to this day, right? Yeah. And trying to make it better, and trying to get involved. And so I was on the board with Jake Burton, so the two of us were basically representing snowboarding with all these old school ski boots. Yeah, and it was incredible.
It's like a whole other podcast.
It's like a whole other podcast, but that's, we were talking before about how, when you're so tied and connected to a brand, you fall victim possibly to, when you lose it, you lose your entire identity in the whole thing. And there was a piece of that for us, for sure. But what I've found now over that same cycle occurring more than once in my life, there's always a natural disaster. There's always an economy falling apart. There's always, planes hitting towers. Like, there's always something.
Yeah.
And I think that when, making that effort, getting in tight with Jake, then I knew him before from selling snowboards and selling, at the shop and all this stuff. But really getting to know somebody like that. Because then when Twist ended, 2 weeks later the phone rings and Troy and I flying out to East Coast to go sit with Jake and talk to him about taking over design for Burton Soft Goods.
And that's where Analog started.
And that's where Analog started, yeah. And Analog was just Twist Part 2 to a big degree.
Wow.
Because it was starting something from nothing and taking it, and we had scale and we had opportunity, and we were able to take what we had sort of started, this core little group of Twist, and then we were able to not only take it through all of the Burton stuff and all the things we learned in making clothes for Craig Kelly and for Terrier and Sean White when he was 12, like all this stuff, but then, with Jeffy and the crew at Burton, the kind of new school crew coming out of there, Jason Brown, like those guys, and being able to start Analog and do what we were doing at Twist, but do it in a much bigger way and more sort of global. So it's just if you tie yourself and connect yourself too hard to one thing, it's a long life, and you're just moving every time you're moving forward. And I think that's the thing I take with me now, having the hindsight of so much time. I'm always the same person. I'm always growing. I'm always figuring out new things. I'm always trying new things. And so it almost doesn't matter what the brand is sometimes. It's just the experience in general.
Yeah.
So again, I think that the big learning out of that is failure's just, it's not even, something ends and something else starts. And that might end and something else starts. And so that's the perspective now, looking at, 40 years in the rear view of snowboarding, that I get to know that it's always going to be good. As long as you don't burn the bridges, like you were talking about earlier. You can't just light the place on fire on the way out. You have to be, very respectful. If people take a risk on you and give you money to do something, you've got to take that seriously and do your best that you can always do. And if you do it that way, then there's always that support structure you're talking about to support you later
on the next thing.
100%.
All right, man.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
We could literally talk for 3 hours about stuff, but I promised we would try to get this done. So you could listen to it in one commute.
No problem. Yeah, hopefully that was good.
Thank you for coming out. Maybe if we do this again next year, we'll dive into the next. We'll do Analog, or we'll do we'll do the next one.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm sure that there's a lot of great lessons that our I guess I say our listener. I don't know what everybody is. If anybody even watches this, but thank you so much for taking.
I was super stoked to do it. Yeah. I couldn't believe you asked me this morning. I was just like, yeah, okay.
I was like, shit, yeah, this would be awesome.
It was crazy. I'm like, oh fuck, no, don't ask me today. Ask me
after.
So I can get up to the fucking lodge.
I'll get you up to the lodge. I promise. All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.